What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of I Came with Fire podcast. Tonight we are here with Connor Matthews. Connor Matthews is a prior Air Force Special Operations Combat Controller turned MMA fighter. He's on Dana White's Contender Series. You can see on his hat there. That's pretty sick. But yeah, man, I'm super excited to have you on. This is the first time we've had somebody on who, he's a fighter, does MMA. I would like to get a couple of more people, but you seem like a great place to start. So why don't you go and introduce yourself to everybody?
Yeah, so guys, how you doing? So just got signed to the UFC. I did 6 years as a combat controller. I was stationed up at the 2-2 up in JBL, Washington. I had a deployment to Afghanistan. Then after that, I got back, kind of did what I wanted to do with my military career. I knew if I re-enlisted at that point, that'd probably bring me to 10, and then I'd probably end up staying in for 20. So I was like, I did my 6 years, decided that, I want to try to go back into fighting, and then spent 4 years after that, trying to make it, and then I finally just broke through. I mean, it hasn't been a uphill battle. It's been a lot of downs and ups, and so it's been a ride. So yeah, I'm very grateful and happy that I was able to, finally accomplish one of my dreams.
Dude, yeah, that's amazing. I want to hear all about that journey for sure. So where did you grow up? Like,
So
what made
I'm
you?
from
Yeah,
yes. So I'm from Boston or Massachusetts. So it's actually not the city here, but like south of Boston. I grew up in this town called Freetown, like 45 minutes south of the city, and I grew up actually doing martial arts literally my entire life. Since I was a kid, I started doing like karate, and I was in and out of that. With other sports, I played everything. You name it, I probably did it, along with a lot of like extreme sports like skateboarding, surfing, snowboarding, and but my main sport really was hockey. So that was actually my
okay,
number one goal. Is I was trying to be in the NHL my whole life, and my senior year took a bad injury, and I missed a lot of like the tryouts and whatnot to kind of go that route for playing college hockey and stuff. So
right,
I kind of was actually kind of depressed and like angry. So I kind of found myself back in the martial arts gym just to kind of give me an outlet. And then my sensei, actually, so that's like karate school, my sensei. He's like, we're gonna put you in for an MMA fight. And then I had like my first fight right after I turned 18. Yeah, I graduated high school, turned 18. I had my first fight, and I was kind of hooked at that point. So I spent like 2 years in Massachusetts, just fighting amateur fights and doing construction, working in the city in Boston. And I was like, damn, this is a grind. You're waking up at 5 a.m., driving to
yeah,
Boston, working on the roofs and stuff, just doing, labor. I was the young guy in the job, so you know what I mean. I was carrying
yeah,
everything, you name it, I was carrying it. And then I was like, you know what? I don't know if this is like, a long-term plan for me. So that's what kind of, made me decide I want to look into the military, into the Air Force. And since I was already, a fighter and a competitive person, I think the special operations is kind of what like, it caught my attention. And so, I ended up talking to an Air Force recruiter and joining, and, the rest is history.
right,
Did
right.
you did you
So
win your
you
first
said
fight?
this,
What's
yeah,
that?
yeah.
Did you win your first fight? The one you said like around your 18?
Oh yeah, I won that fight. Yep, I won my first fight. So that was crazy. I
It's a
fought
good
somebody.
start.
He's actually another veteran. His name is Derek Shorey. He was like the main state champ wrestler, and I remember I was scared as hell. That was like, I would say, like probably the most scared I've ever was going for my first MMA. I thought I was like fighting a full grown man. You know what I mean? Like I
Right.
had not really any like real fights before that. So yeah, that was pretty intense.
I'm curious about
So
your
you said,
recruitment part. Sorry, Brad, I keep cutting you off, but I was curious about your recruitment
yeah,
part. You
no,
said that you had a challenge, or you wanted to be challenged, and MMA fighting kind of led you to combat controller in the Air Force. Um, did you ever think of other branches, like maybe the Marines, because they tend to recruit real hard as they're the challenge, the few, the proud? Did you meet with them, or?
Uh, Yeah, I looked into the Marines. I looked into the Navy. Actually, I wanted to be a SEAL. That was
Mhm.
like the first thing I saw that kind of caught my hand. Is there was a lot of movies were out. I think Active Valor just came out around that time, and I was
mm,
just and but actually I was talking to the Navy recruiter, and he was just not really like giving me like a solid job. He's like, hey, we'll just put you in for this job, whatever job it was, and then you can cross train and try out to be a SEAL. And I was just like, nah, that's not gonna happen. And then
Sounds like a
actually
recruiter.
my uncle Yeah, exactly. My uncle was he works for special operations as a support, so he kind of gave me a lot of insight about like what pararescue and PJs, so pararescues were, and combat control a little bit. So
Hmm.
I kind of heard about that, and that spiked my interest. You know what I mean? He used to tell me all these old stories about like how crazy and badass they were in like Vietnam and stuff. So, and then actually, when I worked to take my pass test, you have to take your initial. We call them IFTs, and that's actually my job now.
Yep.
Is I administer the IFTs for New England, and
Oh wow.
so the guy, the combat controller that came in, he made me. I took the test, and there was actually somebody slotted to go before me, but I did better. I did like way better than him on the test. I don't think he maybe failed something, so they're like, we're not going to send him. We're going to give you his slot if you want it.
Mm.
Oh shit.
And then but it was either between PJ or combat control. And he's like, all right, what job do you want? And I was just like, oh, I don't know, whatever, whatever one is like the best job or whatever you think is the best. He's like, it's not about what's the best job. He's like, do you want to kill people or do you want to save people? And I was like, well, I guess I want to kill people. It's
That's
just
the
like one thing.
question.
I always tell that story, but it's just so funny. That's like the first time anybody's ever said that to me. And I was like, well, I kind of want to
Yeah.
kill people. I don't want to just put me in as combat control. And I literally had no idea what the hell a combat controller did like air traffic. I don't even know what air traffic control was until I went to air traffic control school. So I was
Mhm.
like, what I had no idea what I was getting myself into with the CCT thing. So, but I saw they did cool stuff. I looked it up a little bit. I saw they got all sorts of awards and medals, and save people, like save teams, special operations teams. So I thought it would be a badass job to get a part of.
Definitely. I just think it's funny that you said to yourself beforehand, you're like, man, this is a grind, getting up early, and you're like, I'm going to trade all this in and go into the military, and then it's still a
Right?
grind,
It's like
and
a
then you're
harder
still
grind.
you're still right, yeah, you're still the new guy taking all the shit,
In
right?
the
So
rear with the
Yeah.
I guess
gear.
fun, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
that's kind of inevitable. You know what I mean? So
Hmm.
yeah, I definitely it's always been that way. I haven't picked any easy routes to do anything in my life, but
Mm.
at the same time, that's kind of who makes you who you are. So
Absolutely. I think those things are set up that way on purpose for a reason. You kind of, like you said, your construction job, they set up those hierarchies so you kind of have to come up the same way, so you understand that you got to earn your spot and that nothing is given. And that's definitely, I think, for your life, man, it's like a reflection of that, is nothing is given, because look how hard you've worked and you've reached the spot where you're at now.
100%, 1,000%. I think it's an important piece of culture that I mean, you see young. I mean, I think that every older culture says this about the young cultures. Like they're what's the
Yeah.
word I'm looking for? Is there? I can't think of the
They're
word right
lazy.
now. They're not. They are lazy.
Yeah.
They are lazy, but I can't think the freaking word. Is when they think they deserve. When they think they deserve like to spend.
Entitled.
Entitled.
Entitled. There we go. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, they're entitled. You know what I mean? And I think it's important in the right ways. But I'm a big believer in like leading by example and not like going at people like that. But yeah, I just feel like there's our younger generation that kind of feel entitled, and I feel like it's good and important to kind of make people understand you got to work for that title and you know what I mean.
Hmm.
So I agree with that.
I'm curious, you said you do all the IFTs, right,
Hmm.
for New England.
Yep.
I'm just curious, do you guys get a lot of people who, or these younger kids, I assume, that aren't ready for it? And, or is there a lot of, just wondering what, like, if there's been a fall off in like the physical fitness standard that you've seen, because I feel like there definitely is. Just
Yeah, I mean,
curious.
it's obviously like across the country, right? We don't have as many physical kids as we had. I mean, these kids are growing up straight in the generation of, they're born in 2005. PlayStation's already been out for a
That's
while.
so crazy.
X, and so it's like these guys have been playing video games and just being inside, just a different culture than we'd had. Like when I was a kid, you know what I mean? I got stuck outside and we just came home when the street lights came on. You know what I mean? That's
Hmm.
how we grew up, and it's just a different
Same.
different society. It's weird though because then you have other sports where you see people getting way better than any of us were. You know what I mean? Like in sports,
Yeah.
they're inclining, they're getting more athletic, faster, stronger, better, more skill. But in other aspects, they're not nearly as strong. But I do
Yeah.
see, like, yeah, I 100% see that. Like, it's I mean, we have the standards. The standard, anybody comes in, you know what I mean. But yeah, you don't see as many people as reaching it. I think, from my perspective. I mean, obviously,
Mhm.
I was always, going through, you focus on yourself, you make your numbers, and then you get there, and then you're competing with other guys that are like you know what I mean? And,
Yeah.
but so I wasn't really paying attention, I don't think, back then to see who was making it and not making it. But, yeah, I seen a lot. I definitely see it. I haven't seen anybody crush the numbers that I used to do to come in for like my push-ups, my sit-ups, pull-ups, running, swim. I haven't seen anybody beat my numbers, you know what I mean? So that's probably
That's
saying
kind of
something.
concerning. That's a
Yes.
little concerning. It's one of the craziest things I remember when I was stationed in Montana. I was head of security forces training, and one of the things I did was in process all the kids that just got to the base and they're processing for the first time. And this is when they really started changing a lot of those standards. But I met one of the airmen who had never passed a PT test in their career. And here they were, had made it through basic training, tech school, and were now operational and had never passed a PT test. And I was like, how is that? How are you even here? Like, that didn't make any sense to me. And one of the master sergeants who was new to our unit had to explain to me, he's like, yeah, so the rules have changed now. He's like, they only have to pass a test once they become operational. And if that doesn't happen, then they can start that process. And that was the craziest thing in the world to me. I'm like, dude, you couldn't even pass basic training without passing a PT test when I was in. But now, and they're not required to take one at tech school. At least at that time, I'm not sure if the rules have changed, but they weren't required to pass one to graduate tech school. And I just thought that was wild that here they were operational.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely wild. That doesn't make sense to me at all, and like how that can even be a thing. You know what I mean? It's like anything. It's like the opposite. Like, in our culture, it's like you get to the job, and then you just have to pass that one a year, and so you see guys weight, fluctuating, and you know what I mean. But yeah, I mean, it's scary. It's scary. You know what I mean? It's just with everything that's going on in the world, it's like making making our softer, making our country softer is not a good sign to see what's going on in the world. You know what I mean? So
definitely not.
Warfare has changed a lot at the same time. You know what I mean? It's not the same way we used to fight. So there's a lot of that too. I mean, technology is absolutely just bumping up so much that it's like I don't even know what war looks like in 10 years from now. Right? We even need people. We have robots and drones and swarms and
AI,
all this stuff. AI, like who knows what war is even like nowadays. We might be just an old, outdated kind of soldier. You know what I mean?
Who knows? Now, I know a lot of them are talking about these like kids like you're talking about, doing all the cyber stuff, that there's no need for like a physical fitness standard. And like, to be honest with you, dude, the kids that are really good at that shit aren't the ones that want to get up and go run, 2 miles and do a bunch of push-ups. And so like, I'm not opposed to jobs like that where it's like, dude, if you want to sit here, eat Cheetos and drink Mountain Dew all day, but all you're doing is crushing the enemy online, I don't care.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
100%. I agree with you. I just want the best people doing it. You know what I mean?
100%.
Whatever the requirement is for the job, it should be the requirement for the job. You know what I mean? But like so that being said, if the requirement for a special operations guy, an operator, is a very high standard, and you should not lower that, because you're just going to get people hurt. You know what I mean? Like, more people are not going to be able to get saved, and like there's a reason why we have, we've made it that
have to depend on each other so much.
Yeah, exactly. I think the Air Force hinders itself when it, like the Marines. Every Marine's a rifleman. Every soldier is, is like the frontline soldier first. So they have to go through very rigorous training, because at any moment they could be like the next man up. But I feel like with the Air Force, you could pretty well like articulate that, okay, not everyone needs to be. They used to always say in BMT, every airman's a sentry. Well, not all of them need to be a sentry. Some of them can be like the tech guy and all of the type of stuff. And I get like bases can be overran, and the cops are probably going to get overwhelmed by a force, like, and stuff like that. But if the security force has already been overwhelmed, do you really have faith or confidence that like the finance guy is going to come out with a M4 and M16 and defend it well? Probably not. So if you're at that point, you might as well chalk up your losses and send in the Marines anyways. So it's kind of like it's like a damned if you do, damned if you don't type situation. But I think the Air Force does hinder itself when it tries to make everyone like a defender, when not everyone is a defender.
Yeah, I agree with that. And there's you're right, because they try. It's like especially the Air Force. I mean, there's a lot of technical skills in the Air Force that, jobs that are, I don't even know what the hell I don't want to touch. You know what I mean? So, I know it's
Right.
funny though. Yeah, that's being said for the Air Force is, I didn't even shoot a gun going through basic training. You know, you have to qualify for like shooting in
Mhm.
basic training. My wingman got sick the day you go to the range to go shoot guns, so I had to go with him to the hospital while he was,
Never leave your
getting checked
wingman.
out, whatever it is. I missed that day, and I was looking forward, like I was coming in to be a
Dang.
combat controller. I was getting to go shoot guns, and like I was really looking forward to shoot guns in in the Air Force. Didn't
Right.
even get to qualify in basic training. I was so mad.
Right. Why couldn't I miss the whole day of classroom crap? I had to miss this one. Yeah, exactly. So, did you was one of the factors in deciding to get out of the Air Force was to pursue an MMA career?
Yeah, definitely. It definitely was a contributing factor. 6 years. I did my deployment. I took a couple fights when I came back. And I I was still fighting amateur, but I did well in those. I fought two. Actually, did okay. I did two fights in like real fast, like 12 seconds, and like another one fast. And I fought for a title. I had the flu right before the title. I ended up getting knocked out in that fight in the second
Damn.
round. I remember I was like fighting. I was like, my legs. I shouldn't have took the fight. I didn't, since it was a title fight, I remember being like, I gotta fight because I'm not gonna back out of that. And I had that still like my
Mhm.
combat control mentality of like, like I don't give a fuck, like I'm gonna go do it. You know what I mean? And then, so it didn't go my way. I shouldn't have done that. And then, um, and then I said, I wanted to move home and pursue the professional career. I definitely was, I've been trying to, for a while, I was wanting to try to do a firefighter gig on the outside along with being a fighter, and you know what I mean. But like, I got lucky enough to start working back with the Air Force and doing, the administrator and the PT test and stuff. So I'm really grateful I can do that job, you know, on the
Yeah, that's
outside.
actually pretty neat. I had no
Yeah,
idea
it
that
was
they
really,
had.
Yeah,
Go
so it was
ahead.
really cool. I think the fighting thing kind of helped me. You know what I mean? Like they kind of heard about me, and like they're like, oh, and that just because there's not too many other combat controllers up here from the Northeast. We don't really put a lot of people into the military in general up here. So
True.
they
Huh.
knew I was living up here in Boston, and the guy that was some EOD guy was doing the job before me, and I guess he had like got blown up like 8 times when he was in and got shot. So he's been having a lot of like medical issues and stuff. So I ended up, he's like he was like couldn't even go administer the test. He was in like a freaking wheelchair getting to the administer. So they're like, hey, can you cover down? Like hopefully he's
Yeah.
getting better right now. So I kind of that's why I filled in here, and I just got real lucky. It's a very it's just I really like it because I'm still connected to the community. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
I feel like and I got kids that are coming in. I know I get to mentor kids that want to be combat controllers and PJs and stuff like that. It's just like that's what I lived that life. So it's just nice to see other kids and try to help them accomplish it. I just really thought it was definitely worth it. You know what I mean? Everything I learned from that my combat control career, it definitely helped me for my fighting career and made me a better person.
Hell
So
yeah.
would definitely highly recommend it for people.
So, what sort of things do you tell the kids that are looking into becoming Air Force Special Operations? What sorts of conversations do you have with them?
So usually the candidates that we have, like they're already they want to do the job. So most of the time I'm mentoring them on specific things, like I keep failing this, and you know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean, or I'm not good at my cows or the push-ups. What can I do? I'll give them programs and stuff like that. But really, it's about when I'm like working out with them. Like today, actually did one today. And when I'm working out about it, it's like I kind of talk to them, build the mentality. Like today we did like a run, and on the run I had a ball, and I would throw the ball and make them sprint and race for it. And like I try to make everything into a competition. So like when they get there, it's not just about like getting through the workouts. It's being competitive about getting through the workouts. I think that's the
Winning the
thing that
That's
workout.
pushes me
cool.
all the way to like screw like what the workout you're doing, right? Let's try to
Mm-hmm.
win at everything you possibly do. And I put them against each other a lot. So like even like when you're going through the pipeline, you should be doing that with your friends. You're your friends and the guys you're all trying to make it. But if you're more worried about beating everybody and being competitive, that being said, I don't mean don't be a good teammate, be a great teammate. I'm all about team and everything. But like when it comes to like the workouts and getting the physical, you got to like. I remember like we were always just trying to kill like who could get the best scores. You know what I mean? That's
Mm-hmm.
what it should be all about. I think if you
Kind of
focus
making
on
it a
that
game.
instead of focusing on focusing on just making it, you have a much better chance of succeeding in the pipeline. So that's really kind of some of the stuff I mentor them on that, and anything I can do to really help them.
Right. So you mentioned that you kind of grew up doing like combat sports and stuff like that. Hockey, I mean, that's super physical. So I assume that maybe like your parents, or you maybe had like an older sibling or anything like that, like your family super focused on those sorts of things as well?
No, actually the
For
opposite.
real?
You're the
Oh,
black
okay.
sheep.
Yeah,
Right.
my it's not that my father was he played football and stuff like that, but he's a lawyer, you know what I mean? He's a white collar,
Mm.
guy. So um and my brother he's an I don't really know what the hell he does, but he does something. He went to school to be an accountant, and now he does something else and makes a lot of money. But but they're white collar, you know
Solid.
what I mean? Definitely not what you expect for my brother we did a lot of extreme sports, and they've always supported me in anything I did my
Hmm.
entire life. But yeah, the physical thing was just kind of, I think, in me from like, you know what I mean? Like that's what I wanted to do. And my parents I was very lucky where my parents, like, if you want to do that, hey, we'll support you, and we'll put you into that. They definitely weren't like super thrilled about the fact of me getting out of the Air Force and pursuing a professional fighting career for sure. You know what I mean? That was kind of like, yeah,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? But I proved that I put the work in every single day, and when they see you like really working hard, they supported me. So, yeah. But it's funny, yeah. I don't know if it's like culturally thing. Like like you can't. Some people I see you push people into doing something physical like that, and they just hate it and they don't want to do it, and
Hmm.
you get the opposite outcome. And then I think that kind of mentality of like wanting to be like that is just like some people have it and some people don't.
I think it's one of those things where people show up every day, and like you have the opportunity to show up every day and you look at it as that opportunity, whereas other people show up and they see what success looks like and they don't want to do that because they realize that it's actual work.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's a
I
burden to
feel
their
like
livelihood.
Yep.
definitely. I mean, I know that like every job, even like special operations, you got to have guys that aren't as willing to work towards that success as other people are. But how much of that actually acts as a filter for like MMA? I feel like it's got to be very unforgiving.
Yeah, I mean, my mentality of going. You saying for like my mentality going into training, like from I
Hmm.
derived from special operations, is like it's night and day. I mean, I think with the fighting world, there's a lot of tough fighters and stuff out there, but I feel like my cheat code is I had the special operations background to build my mentality and just
Hmm.
suck. You know what I mean? Like how many times like they put me through like just rigorous shitty training. So my perspective on like a hard sparring match or training session
Hmm.
it's just not nearly as bad as other things that I've had in my military training. So it just allows me like I talk about like going into my fights, it's just the ability to remain calm and focus at the task. You know what I mean? And like in this special for we're going through dive school, they're like drowning you and you're doing all this stuff underwater, and if you're freaking out and you have to stay calm, go through your procedures, get back to your air source, and not worry, stay in your zone. And I trained all that, so now when I go into a fight, which is something I actually am passionate about and that I love, it's just I can stay so calm and relaxed and just focus on the task at hand and get the job done. So I just think,
Yeah.
yeah. And then if the day-to-day grind, same thing. It's just like being a professional athlete, yes, some fights days of training is pretty hard, but like I think I've developed definitely a mentality from the special operations that kind of puts me ahead of a lot of people. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
I got to the UFC basically in 4 years. You know what I mean? That 6 years I was a
That's
combat
incredible.
controller. I wasn't really training. You know what I mean? I did
Hmm.
train a little bit before. I did martial arts my whole life, but like when I really buttoned down and put my foot my mental, and I had a chance to get there even within 3 years. So it's like you know what I mean? I think that I wouldn't have been able to do that if I didn't have that mentality from the special operations.
Dude, so what has that journey been like? Like, how did you get to the point where, how does anybody get to the point where they're auditioning or whatever you want to call it for the UFC? Like, that's definitely the end goal. I gotta feel like for anybody who's trying to come up in the MMA world.
100%. So yeah, there's a lot of the hardest thing is that you're by yourself early in the journey, kind of. Not to say that I didn't have a ton of help. I mean, you need so much help, but you need to figure out how to get the right people around you, which is like a skill in itself, right? But it was 5 years. I had took 5 fights. locally before I fought for, I think was it 4 or 5? Yeah, 5 fights locally. I was 5-0, and I fought for the Contender Series for the first time. So usually if you have the, 5-0, 6-0 record, you can get, contacted to fight for the Contender Series. You kind of have to know somebody. Dana White's from Boston, so obviously we have a lot of gyms up here in Boston that, people know him, and you know what I mean. All right, we'll give
Mhm.
this kid a shot. He's another kid from Boston. I'm not gonna lie to you, it's probably the most easiest why I got the shot so early. But I went out there and I fought Francis Marshall for the first time. Um, and we had a war. Like, my broke my nose. I got stitches, bloody. My face is just covered in blood, and it was a
Yeah.
good fight. But I didn't get the win, unfortunately. So that was another setback. So I had to get that setback. Luckily, Dana White was coming back to Boston that March. I didn't know that at the time after I fought, but he ended up coming to Boston in March. So I got on that card. I fought in front of Dana White one more time. He saw me. I did a really good fight, finished the guy quick. And they're like, all right, we're supposed to give you another opportunity to go back on the Contender Series again and fight for a UFC contract. So I trained hard, came back, and then I've got finally won my fight. I think they put me in there with a guy they didn't want me to win either. They put me against another 10-0 Brazilian. Like, the kid was like 6'2", big tall guy. So but I got the
Damn.
finish, and it was I got the finish. I got the win, and it was a ride. But that being said, dude, like, yeah, there's so much stuff that happened on the way up. Like, COVID happened. Gyms, I had fallen outs with, had to switch gyms, and just, you know what I mean? It was definitely not, there's definitely a lot of times where I was like, fuck, is this worth it? What am I doing? Injuries, got knee surgery. You know what I mean? Like, it's been
Yeah.
a definitely a grind, but like, anything that's worth hard is, it means so much more. You know what I mean? I like it. I'm glad looking back at it, I'm glad it was hard. You know what I mean? The harder it is, the more I feel like I accomplished. So
Absolutely. So training for the UFC, you said, you lose this fight and then you get the opportunity to do it again. What does that look like for you when you're basically training for the pinnacle of what everybody is aiming for? What does that look like for you training to get to that point where you feel comfortable to say, I'm going to go into this octagon and I'm going to finish this guy? Like, what does that look like for you?
So me, it's like an 8-week fight camp is what I generally do. And it's just like, you're being disciplined. You're not missing any training sessions. It's like every day when you wake up is how to optimize yourself the most for getting ready for, to fight your opponent. It's easy. It's almost easier though for me. It's like every single time I'm doing an exercise or doing a workout, I just imagine like my opponent is there and I'm going to do it better and faster than my opponent. That's the kind of
Hmm.
way you kind of got to look at it. And
Yeah.
and we used to do that, honestly, for the military. I remember, like, there was a big sign in our gym. It's like, your enemy is training right now. What are you doing? And we said this big sign is, and I always kind of like, I like that because, I used to think about that all the time. It's like, there's some, even if they weren't, not much of the Taliban wasn't running out and working out, but I used to use that as motivation. You know what I mean? They're getting ready to go to war. We should be getting ready to
Yeah.
go to war. And that's what I do when I'm in my fight camps. I'm just full on 100%, with my training sessions. I try to optimize my sleep as much as possible,
Hmm.
food, nutrition, and you know what I mean. And if you do usually when I go into my fights, my mentality is I no stone left unturned. So like I put everything I possibly they did. So whatever, like if I feel comfortable, like if I did everything I possibly can, but I didn't come up with a win, I'm okay with that. To be honest, like, you know what I mean. It's just that's how I mean, that is what happened. Maybe, and I'll
Hmm.
still learn from that. So that's my mentality. I mean, if I lose, I lose, but I just know I put everything I possibly do to get ready for that fight, and I usually am pretty calm and confident in my abilities at that point.
Do you
Yeah.
study your opponent too? Do you like watch previous fights and kind of see what they're into and stuff? Like
A little
maybe
bit,
looking for tells and
not
other things?
not too much. Not I like you could watch. I'll watch a couple fights in the initial part of my fight camp, kind of get an idea of how he moves, what he looks like. You know what I mean? Talk to it with my coaches a little bit, and then that's it really. I let my coaches kind of they study him a lot. They really get into
Okay.
it. So when they're really studying him and they bring it out and like my training, my pads, and we develop a plan. And then I'm focused mostly on me implementing the plan more than what my opponent's
Yeah.
doing because for instance, I used to be an orthodox, but my last 2 fights have been fighting southpaw. So you know what I
Mm,
mean. I just switched stance. So anybody that's been studying me before that is gonna think that I was gonna come out orthodox, and then I came out southpaw, and that fucked up their entire game. So you
game
don't want to
plan.
go. Anybody can has the opportunity to change and allow what they do in between camps. So I just don't want to get bought off and like if he's not doing this, what the fuck, you know what I mean? So just
Mhm.
a little bit.
So a lot of I've listened to a lot of other fighters before talk about that. They kind of go ghost for a while. They get off social media. They kind of leave their phone alone. Do you kind of have that sort of process as well, where you just kind of all the distractions gone, and then that just becomes the focus, and then maybe after the fight come back to it, or like do you do anything like that? No.
No, I keep my life like when I'm fighting, man. It's like I'm right here. My life doesn't change in between when I'm fighting and when I'm not fighting. You know what I mean? It's the same.
All
I'm
right.
like the way I'm talking to you right now is the way I'm gonna talk to you. The only thing that's different is like the last week I'm cutting weight, so like my
Mm-hmm.
energy is super low. So I just kind of like just make it from meal to meal. You know what I mean? That's about it. You know what I mean? I'm not doing
Yeah.
anything extra. So, but you still have the like now with the UFC, I'm gonna have a lot of media obligations. I have podcasts I gotta do. You know what I mean? This stuff's all
Mm.
part of the game. It's you know what I mean. It's not like fighting is fighting, but it's also you gotta promote yourself and make it somebody that people want to watch. It doesn't matter how good you are if you're not putting asses in seats. The UFC doesn't really want you. So,
I bet that makes you
you
feel
know,
more
I
comfortable, like fight to fight. Because if you just
like
stay in your normal routine, then you don't get thrown off by things. So if you just be
yeah.
you, be real, then you're good to go.
Yeah, you don't want to treat it different than you do every single day in training. Like when I go in the gym, you know what I mean? I go into the gym and I fight people every day, and that's how I react. So why am I going to add this extra stress to myself that treat it differently than I do in every single day? You want to
Yeah.
make it as familiar as possible. And I think the same thing with like with combat and everything. You know what I mean? It's like you when you go to a gunfight, you're not just gonna go freaking oh god, and you know what I mean? Just like kind of you gotta stay calm. You gotta take a step back, make the decisions. You know, look at things from a bit of view, and execute what you got to do. So
Yeah.
So what fighters did you look up to growing up? Is there any of them that you kind of tried to like mimic your style after or mentality wise?
I don't know about mentality wise, but I know about like I love GSP. I love Georgian St.
Mm.
Pierre. He seems like a
Oh yeah.
true martial artist, true athlete. I was a big fan of him growing up. I really like Conor McGregor. I just think he's just he's changed the sport, and
Yeah,
you
cool
can't take
name.
anything. Yeah, you can't take anything away from the way. I don't think there's a better martial artist on the way up than he was calling fights, beating guys in the first round. You know what I mean? Like he got injured and
Yeah,
obviously he partied a lot, and he's probably not the same guy he ever was before that. But like I just think that on the way up he's really good.
definitely.
Um, I grew up in a UFC fighters gym, Joe Lozon. So like obviously as a kid I definitely looked up to him. And yeah, that's about it, man. Those are my guys. BJ Penn, big fan of BJ
Mm-hmm.
Penn. Um, there's old school guys like that. And then nowadays, I really like Max. I still like Max Holloway. I love Max
Mm-hmm.
Holloway. I train
Yeah,
with Calvin Cater, Rob Font, two top 10 guys in the UFC. So, man, those guys are the guys I've really been trying to emulate the most in my fighting.
yeah. Do you remember this old fighting show that used to come on maybe like early 2000s, but it was called K1. Do you remember that?
Yeah,
Did you
K1
ever watch
boxing.
K1?
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
badass.
Dude, yeah. One of the fighters on there, Alexei Ignashov. Do you remember him by
Mm-hmm.
any chance from Belarus? Dude,
Yep.
that guy, I used to love watching him fight. That like axe heel kick he had bring down somebody's head. Just his range with his leg and how straight he could get it and just bring it down on top of somebody like that was insane. But I used to love watching K1, like Pride, early UFC. You know what I mean?
Yep.
All that stuff. I mean, did you watch a lot of that growing up as well?
I honestly I started probably watching that when I was in the military. Some
Mm,
reason I don't know why I started getting into like K1, all those like European kickboxing and Muay Thai and stuff like that. That's when I really started watching that stuff the most. I didn't really know too much about that growing up. I did do karate fighting growing up, so I was
mm-hmm,
like point sparring, and
mm-hmm.
I did a couple of kickboxing fights, and like with like kind of karate style kickboxing. This is like old school, and yeah, so like then I was into like guys like Ed Parker, who was like the guy
Mhm.
in who was another karate guy, like Bruce Lee, like Jackie Chan. Like I didn't really know too much about the real world fighting stuff. My
Right.
like when I was a kid, I used to look up into like the fake karate, movie karate
Chuck
kind of
Norris.
guys because I thought that shit was real. And
Right.
and then I did when I was in the military. That's when I started kind of taking more interest into the fighting world, the UFC.
Dude, Jackie Chan is actually a badass, though. I remember
Hell
learning that he
yeah.
does all his own stunts. It's fucking crazy, all the crap that he put himself through. Like that dude's a badass for sure. A mad respect for Jackie Chan.
Dude, me too, man. He's a fuck, and dude, he's still one of these older movies. He's like old as hell, and he's still doing stunts and stuff. So, man, dude,
Yeah,
I love Jackie Chan. That was my shit when I was a kid.
definitely.
Rush
I,
Hour.
I watched the video. Oh yeah, absolutely. I watched a video of him recently where his kid was watching him do a lot of these stunts, and he like got hurt and all this shit, and his kid got emotional, and it made him emotional, and it's just kind of like this cool moment you get to watch between him and his daughter, which just kind of realizes like all this shit that he put himself through to take care of their family, and actually like getting hurt and doing stuff anyway, and so yeah, no, he's a really cool guy. It would be neat to meet him, honestly, but I don't think that'll ever happen. But it would
I
be
heard he
pretty
doesn't
dope.
even really speak. I don't know this. I heard he doesn't really speak English that well. So like everybody would literally tell him line by line, like, "Hey, this is what you need to say," and then he'd copy it and just say it in the line, and that was it. So which is kind of funny.
It's actually
That
true.
actually kind of
I've heard
makes a
that
lot of
too.
sense.
Yeah.
That's kind of
It's
funny.
weird.
So I was just curious, like I've never been a fighter at all. Like I've never been. I've had like fights that like were like personal with people, but never been in like any sort of like competitive fighting. I did wrestling. I did football and stuff like that. But one of the things I've always been interested in is I hear a lot of like Mike Tyson talking about like fighting somebody would get into this like headspace where like it was like one track mind. All I could think of the feeling that he had before going into a fight. And you read about some of these old like fighting cultures, like the Bushido, which of course like samurai, Spartans, all that. They talk about having this like mentality that they would get themselves into before going into battle or fighting. Like, is there any sort of like thing that you pull from before you get in the ring with somebody that just kind of like gets you in that mind space?
I think so. I think that I think it's like I just have a belief in myself as like a fighter, as a warrior. You know what I mean? That I don't know if it's like
Yeah.
a fake thing or whatever, but I just truly believe in myself. Like I'm ready. When I'm ready, like when it comes to fight, I'm ready to like I'm ready to die. I'm ready to lose my arm. I'm ready to break. Like I tell myself, like, hey, so be it. You know what I mean? Like when you go into competition, this is battle. So like I do tell myself that. But at the same time, I try to stay as calm and relaxed. And like I said, like I'm talking to you, I don't try to amp myself up any more than that. But I do have a
Mhm.
mentality. I know when I'm going in there that like I'm ready to fucking break my leg. You know what I mean? I'm just gonna like this is the time where it's only 15 minutes of my life, and I'm just gonna do everything I fucking possibly can to win in those 15 minutes.
One of the gnarliest injuries I've ever seen, you was talking about breaking your leg, was again on K1. French fighter Jerome Lebaner. I don't know if you remember him, but he went and just kicked somebody like I think around the knee, and his whole
Yeah,
shin snapped in half. And
you see it a lot.
Like
yeah,
Silva's.
the
Gross.
craziest thing was yeah,
Silva's,
yeah,
Conor McGregor's,
yeah,
Yeah.
what's his name? Chris Weidman.
That's
They
so
did
much
it.
force.
Yeah,
There's a YouTube channel called like
dude,
ASAP Science, and they broke down. It's like a bone requires like I can't remember the exact number, but it's a ton of force just to like shatter or snap, and then it's like a bone hitting another bone, and like bone's actually pretty strong, and the amount of force to break your own shin on something is like incredible. It's a ton of strength. It's like
yeah,
superhuman strength.
yeah.
yeah. I hope that's the one I don't want to get, man. Right
No,
there.
hell no.
That's it. Try to
We did
save.
not just jinx you. Not at
Nope.
Hope
all.
not.
No.
Nope.
Hope not. Hope not.
Dude, I just remember him trying to like stand up on his leg, and
Yeah.
it
Oh
like looked like
yeah.
a spaghetti noodle trying to keep fighting. And the other guy, I don't remember who he was fighting, was like, yo, no. Like, you need to stop. Like, something's
Yeah.
not right here. Yeah. No, that's crazy, man. It's a testament to all the hard work because you got to feel like it took a second for his brain to realize that shit was going on in his leg, and then
It's
not care
adrenaline.
that it was happening because exactly. That's
Mhm.
I mean,
just it's insane.
that shit was already probably broken. You know what I
That's
mean?
true.
Like that shit was it's probably been broken for a while. And that's why like, and we talked about like earlier how, the younger generation, I got kids playing with shin splints all the time. And it's just like,
Mhm.
dude, I mean, it's those shin splints. You're not, I don't think your leg's going to fold over while you're running around the thing. Yeah, it's going to hurt. It's going to be, a little bit painful, but you can keep on going. And so
Right.
I hate hearing these, like when people start, we used to always say, like, the first thing you hear is like, when somebody's going to quit, you hear them say the word shin splints first because,
Right.
I mean, it's like, yeah, of course your shins are going to hurt, man. That's part of the game. It doesn't like, what are you going to just quit? Like, and people do, but yeah.
Right. Dude,
Yeah.
that's one of the reasons why I like having conversations with people like you that have put themselves through hard shit on purpose to make themselves better, because there's not enough I mean, there are a lot of conversations out there in this space about that, but I have not had a lot of conversations with people about these sorts of things before. And I love hearing it. And like, I don't know if you ever met him before, but the conversation we had with Chief Master Sergeant Robert Gutierrez, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I never
Yeah,
reviewed it.
and yeah, and listening to him talk about just the shit he put himself through, and then talking about wanting to quit because of shin splints. It's like, I know you can't
Right.
compare
Taking
those two
two to the
things at
chest,
all. Right,
taking two to the chest, calling an airstrike, still finish the mission
right.
and carry yourself out,
Gotta run.
and then guys
Exactly.
complaining about shin splints. I know, but
Yeah,
like, yeah, I know it's
Can you
crazy. But
yeah.
at
imagine?
the end of the day,
I was
yeah,
gonna say,
no,
could you
that's
imagine
at the end
him?
of the day.
He's like running back to the helicopter. He's got 2 shots, right? He's about to pass out, and he gets like 10 feet away from it and goes, "I'm done, guys. Shin splints," and just sits down. Like
Shin splints, that's it. That's the thing that's gonna keep you from getting on the
that's
helicopter,
what
right?
stops him.
Well, I think what it is that I was getting at is that, like, you can push yourself past a lot more than what you think you can
Yeah.
push yourself past. And when you're focused on something as simple as shin splints, right? Because comparing the two, like what he went through and somebody with
Mhm.
shin splints is not even the same, right?
Nope.
But it's like one of these things where if you can listen to somebody say what they did and what they went through, and look, they're still here, it's just like a testament to how much further the body can take you if the mind is just there with it at the same time. And
Yep.
it makes me think of something that the Stoic philosopher Seneca said, where he said, "Make hard the body, and so that it will not disobey the mind." And I love that quote because it's 100% the truth. You make hard the body so that it doesn't disobey the mind. All of it, what you're putting yourself through, the shin splints. I mean, how many times have you, I mean, my legs hurt every day if I go run, but it's
Yeah.
just one of these things where it's the mental toughness piece too, where you were talking about how these kids, they may not be as physically fit, but I think there's this whole element as well that doesn't get talked about enough, where there's the mental toughness, the spiritual readiness, all that stuff that just doesn't exist there, and you can learn it, but you have to be willing to put yourself through that stuff to get to that point where you can say, this hurts, but it doesn't really matter.
I agree, but there's definitely, and I agree with you mostly. And the only
Okay.
thing that is like, they do have like a point like where like we're going through training, like a 2.5 year pipeline, and they were smoking us all the way to the end, and people's bodies
Mm-hmm.
start to break down, and then they're unable to accomplish it because they almost pushed them too far. And it's not the
Mm-hmm.
people that were quitting; they weren't the people wouldn't quit, which caused them into having all these issues later on in life. So I'm with you, but
Mm-hmm.
I see nowadays is they're going the pendulum is going the other way, and they're trying to like make it so like safe for them to make it through so they don't have injuries. So these guys are going to make it from the beginning to the end without injuries. But like now, are those people as mentally strong as the guys that we had that made it through and just they didn't give shit about them, but they're so mentally strong, but they're broken. You know what I mean? So you got to
Mm-hmm.
find that
Mhm.
like that balance in
You're right.
between. Are you mentally preparing these people as much as possible, and are you not physically damaging them so we can preserve what we need to do to get the job done when we need to get the job done. It's like for me for fight camps. If I train so hard in my fight camp and sparred every fucking day, and I might get
Mm-hmm.
really good at fighting, but I'm probably going to get a lot of injury. And by the time you get me to the battlefield, I'm not going to be able to do anything because I'm just too beat up. And we
Right.
have to look at the way our soldiers the same. It's a longer fight camp, 2.5 years pipeline. But how do we mentally prepare them best as possible to get them ready for the thing? And that's hard. You're right though. It's a hard thing. But I do believe in the stronger you make the mind is, and creating that mentality. If you create a great mentality initially, they will always be. I'd rather have a strong mentality in a weaker body than a strong body and a weak mentality any day.
Absolutely, dude. I really couldn't have said it any better. It's just one of these things where, like you said, you have to find the end. The end result has to be where you're spending all this time and money to refine a product. They have to be ready to go. The product, quote unquote, the product has to be ready to go when you need it. You can't abuse it too much. But yeah.
Sorry, guys. I gotta move my camera up here. It's, my phone's dying. So
You're good. You're good.
Yeah, I agree with you 1,000%, man.
So now that what does this look like now that you're signed a contract with the UFC? Like, I'm not even sure like what weight class you're in, but are you going to like begin like touring around, like meaning fights, or like how does that work? You just like fight regionally until they start moving you around to like national fights, or?
So for now on, I will be scheduled. All my fights will be in the UFC I have a 4-fight contract with the UFC. So, wherever they have fights, I can fight anywhere. It could be any international. It could be in this country. Whatever they really need, I have an opportunity to fight on that card. So, nothing has been scheduled yet for me, but there's some big fights coming up that I hopefully potentially can get on. I'm feeling ready to go in March. So I think so. That's what I'm looking. That's the Sean O'Malley cards going on in March. They're having another one in Atlantic City, which is probably the most likely for me to get the hop on. But yeah, I'm just getting myself ready now. After my last fight, my shoulders were kind of messed up. So I got that taken care of. It's starting to feel better. Just started sparring this week, as you can tell. I got black eyes and stuff right now. But
You
so
look
just started
tough, bro.
sparring, getting myself back into fight camp. I'm going out to Vegas tomorrow. We're gonna go for a week at the Performance Institute just to kind of get myself ramped up and get back in. They have at the Performance Institute. It's a building you can go to that has like physical therapy, nutrition, like a spa. They have trainers, athletic trainers, basically everything you need. So I'm just gonna go there, go get checked out, do some PT in my shoulders, get a little bit better, and so when I come back, you kind of get full into fight camp and get ready to get my first UFC fight.
That's dope. So at what point will you know who you're fighting?
Usually, generally, like 8 weeks, but I've seen 16 weeks. I've seen, it doesn't really, so.
Oh, okay.
And then at the same time, like if even I'm getting ready for somebody and I get close to the fight and there's somebody like a couple weeks ahead of me, somebody gets hurt, I can step up, take an opportunity, maybe fight a better guy than I was supposed to fight. So, and I can kind of climb the ranks a little bit higher, faster. Even if I take a tough fight, you're kind of doing the UFC a favor, so they kind of like to see that guys take short notice fights, so that's always a possibility.
Yeah. So is this 4-fight contract kind of like your like probationary contract?
Yeah, pretty. It's they usually they give you 4. That they make a decision if they're going to keep you or leave you. After 3, it seems like generally you have to kind of win those first 2 fights, and then I've seen guys do the 1 and 3. It just depends on who you are, what you bring to the table. It's not too much, but it's like 10 and 10, 12 and 12, by 10,000 and 10,000. So 10,000 to show, 10,000 to win, 12 and 12. So it's not that much, but it's so that's why it's a grind, man. For like especially other people, like you kind of have to dedicate your life to being a MMA fighter, right? It's a full-time job, and you know what I mean. And the pay is not that much, so it's like it's hard to figure out a balance to do the both. So.
Hey, so I was kind of curious.
It.
I'm going to ask you. I want to kind of get in your headspace a little bit more, Connor. And so you said you did a lot of hockey, which is a very contact sport, and then you went into fighting, and you became a combat controller. Did that for 6 years, and you got out and you went right back into fighting. Have you always been like chasing? Crap, I just forgot the word. Have you always been like someone chasing, like fear or a challenge or
like adrenaline junkie?
Threat? Yeah.
No, actually, I'm not so much an adrenaline junkie. I don't think I was, but I think I kind of developed an adrenaline junkie thing in my combat control. portion of my
Okay.
life. But before that, I think I was the opposite, like afraid of everything. Like I don't really like heights, but I do like overcoming. I do
Challenges.
like overcoming like a fear, a challenge, and a
Yeah.
fear, right? A challenge and like accomplishing something. I do like that. So, but like I remember like when I was actually I was like working in Boston. I fucking hate being up on roofs. I hate climbing. I hate like heights. I hate that shit. And then I joined combat control and I find myself fucking jumping out of planes at night and doing all this other crazy stuff, scuba diving. Like I remember when I was a little kid, I was scared of the water. I did not want to get in the pool. Like I literally petrified, scared. And then now I'm a combat controller. They used to drop you off 3K out, and you got to swim with the scuba diving to shore. You know what I mean? And like in the festered water. So it's like I'm not an adrenaline junkie, but I like to overcome my fears for sure. I absolutely. And I think yeah, that's the extreme sports side of me. I think you know what I mean. But I don't like to do things that are uncalculated. I don't like
Okay.
to do dumb, risky shit. I
Okay.
like to if I'm gonna do something like risky, it's gonna be like just the safest way possible. You know what I mean? I'm not climbing shit with no solo. I'm not jumping, doing swooping, doing crazy stuff when I'm skydiving. I'm not. I'm just gonna kind of like do what I got to do to get the job done.
So your threat is like calculated in a way. You're not putting yourself into a threatening
Try always.
environment that's not calculated. Do
100%.
you?
Same thing with fighting. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Fighting is not. I'm not going in there. It's not like I'm like everybody's like, oh, you don't mind getting hit. No, I'm not trying to get hit. I'm trying to finish this guy in the most calculated way as possible without taking as much damage. Yes, do you take damage to get the job done? Sometimes it absolutely happens, but I'm not. I'm not trying to have that happen. I think it's like a snowboarder, right? If you were like or a skier, right? You go on the top of a mountain, you see these guys snowboarding these crazy ass mountains. They're like, dude, that looks like if you're going down, that looks like suicide. Like for him, it doesn't look like suicide because he sees his line. He sees what he knows he's done. He's put himself in that situation so many times that he sees how like calculated it is to get down that mountain. You know what I mean? So that's the way I think. That's the way I look at it.
Okay. My follow up to that is has since you've become more into like being comfortable with threats, is there been a time since then where you've kind of had like no threats going on, and does that like mess with your psyche?
I can't not do anything. I have to be doing something all day long, every single day. So
Okay.
I don't like if I'm not if there's like a time where I'm not like that's probably you know what I mean. Like I don't know my ADHD I had from when I was a child. Like I'm doing like all day fucking long. If that makes sense. Like I'm like yeah I can't. I don't like to not be doing nothing. Like I'm gonna be like training all day. If I'm not training, I'm doing something to like my podcast. I'm doing building my gym. I'm just keep on like I'm always just doing something constantly all day every day. I feel like. And I feel like so I don't give myself that opportunity, which is probably not a good thing. Honestly, I'd probably see a psychiatrist about that or something. But
Right.
Everyone deals with their stuff a little differently. The reason why I brought this up is Brandon and I had like a conversation on the phone a couple of weeks ago, or about a week ago, I think, and we're talking about how so like with me personally, when I was in security forces, right now it's not as crazy as like combat controller or anything like that, but like when I was in security forces, you're responding to 911 calls, you potentially get into a scuffle with someone, you might have to draw your gun, like there's things that are going on, and like in your mind you're always playing these. And then these last couple of years I've been in an office job, and I started to notice that I was getting kind of like crazy in that office space because I wasn't around a threat. I wasn't doing something that was like, I guess, challenging me. It was hard in different ways, but it wasn't what my body needed. And I like how you were kind of talking about how you have to have like that mindset and the pendulum. You got to make sure that you're both physically and mentally ready, all type of stuff. And this kind of goes into something that Brandon and we're going to tease now, but it's going to be coming soon for listeners. We have a thing that we're going to start doing where it's fortify all fronts. And what we mean there is all fronts of your life. So physically, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, all those type of things. We are going to try to, we've had a lot of guests on here talk about you need to be like well-rounded. That you need strengthen all of these to be healthy, to be ready to go, and to be there for yourself, for your family, and your friends. And I think you emulate that pretty well, what you're talking about today. And I was just kind of
Thank you.
curious if you wouldn't
Definitely.
mind maybe sharing with us something a little bit more personal. And if you don't want to, it's perfectly fine. We'll change directions. But have you ever dealt with a time where you kind of felt like you weren't enough, or that you weren't able to, like, what are some of the failures, I guess, that you kind of dealt with to this point? I know there's a lot of hard work to get where you are, but what are some really hard knockbacks that really questioned your psyche?
So my first one is, so academically, as a kid growing up, like I said, like I don't want to sit down and I do things all day, right? Like extreme
Yeah.
ADHD, and I've been like that my entire life. That being said, so like, I can't sit down. I wasn't sitting down reading books. I really didn't do academically growing up. I wasn't, I didn't care. I didn't care at all. So when, and I joined combat control, and I'm just thinking, it's a physical job, but like, surprise, no, you got to learn how to do a lot
Smart
of
physical job.
academics. Smart, yeah. You have to be you have to be an air traffic controller. So my first setback I had was, I made it through selection, physical stud, yeah, great, who, yeah, whatever. But you got down there, and then I failed my air traffic control school, my first test that I took. So, and then when I washed back, and then at this my first time washing back, and you kind of make a pretty strong bond with the guys. You go through basic training with, and then you go through selection with them, and then you know what I mean. You've been on a team with these guys for a while, like 3 to 4 months, and then boom, I failed the test, and I get washed back to a whole new team. So I remember that was very, like, that was my first time, and I was like, oh shit, maybe this and that, maybe I'm just not smart enough. I'm just, you know what I mean? Like I'm in it. So, but that was my first like real thing. And I knew I had to go back and I just studied my ass off. I put everything I possibly could. And so when I came in, and I came back and I passed it, and I made it all the way through, I proved to myself, like, for me, was my biggest win I think I ever had, to prove to myself that, like, because that's what I wasn't good at. And I
Mm-hmm.
accomplished that goal. Like the physical washbacks I had in my life, like, yeah, they suck. Or, I washed back at dive school, but that was a physical thing. I knew I could come back and beat that, because I know how physically, I can be. But mentally, that was a big portion that I broke through, and I kind of, like, from there on off, I passed everything pretty well, because I just had the confidence of, trusting myself that I could study, I could do it. You know what I mean? I proved to myself that I could do it. And I think, yeah, but that was I had a washback dive school that sucked as well. I mean, that's probably the hardest school you have. And when you wash back there, it's, you're getting drowned for like 5 weeks in a pool for pre-scuba before you even go. You get to dive school, you do 3 weeks in dive school, and then you fail this test called one man's. And one man's to take you underwater, and they have a blacked out mask, and they're like tying your hose up behind you. You have to get to your oxygen, get to your regulator, breathe off it, make sure all your equipment's good, and they thrash you around. You have to do this for like 15 minutes underwater.
Dang.
So it's like a really hard test. But
Holy crap.
yeah, and so I failed that. So when I washed back, I feel a lot of people get washed out because of that. And I had to go through pre-scuba again. I had to make my way all the way back there, and then I passed it. So I think those washbacks that I had were so hard going through the pipeline. But when I, later on, like for my fighting career and stuff, I think that's, when I didn't make it, I had my washback. I call it my washback for the Contender Series for the first time. I was able to relate to those times in my life where, I think this is the end, but I was just like, but I went back to work and I got it done the second time. So, yeah, those are a couple times in my life where I definitely have had, everybody gets those doubt in your head when something big like that, but you just kind of have to keep on chugging away and grinding and keep believing in yourself.
I think it's good to hear, and especially for like listeners, it's okay to fail. You can fail at things, but it's how you bounce back. It's how you decide, you know what, I'm going to learn from it, and I'm going to keep pushing. And that's
Exactly.
these are pretty good examples. People think like spec ops or UFC fighters, MMA fighters, that they're just like go 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 go, and they don't fail. But they keep, the reason why they don't fail is because when they do fail, they keep going. Failing is when you actually give up, and if you don't give up, you're good to go. So
100%, I agree. I mean, a failure, you have to fail. I've learned everything through failure. I feel like at the end of the day, you know what I mean? You have to fail over and over and over and over again until, something. finally comes to fruition.
Dude, honestly,
Cool.
I think that's something that not enough people experience nowadays. Everything in our culture as Americans is super easy,
Everybody
and
wins.
that entitlement that entitlement that you were talking about, like I know, like the old guy that says like, oh, the next or the last generation to feel that or whatever. But I think it's becoming kind of a little bit more true. Or has become more true as time has gone on and as our society has become more easier. But like, it kind of makes sense why a lot of these tribal cultures have things like rites of passage, where they
Mm-hmm.
these kids at a certain age, they have to go through something strenuous where they could fail to basically become a man or whatever they gotta, you get on the other side of that. But failure is such a important aspect of life, and people have become so accustomed to being protected and shielded from it, that I think that, like, when you said that failure is an excellent teacher, like that's the truest thing ever. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
everybody fails on a weekly basis, a daily basis, or whatever you're trying to do. Maybe you wanted to get, it could be something as small as like, man, I really want to get those dishes done today before I had to go do this, and you didn't. And it's, I don't know, there's not enough of that today, I feel like. And I feel like if people could experience it a little bit more, they might realize there's some lines that you can push yourself past and be a little bit more humble about success.
Yeah, I'm almost at the point where I feel bad if people don't challenge themselves enough to feel that feeling of failure. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? That's what it really comes down to. It's like you gotta put yourself in there, and if you just some people just don't care. I feel like in today's society enough to even put themselves out there to fail. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why they're just okay with that, and I think
Mm-hmm.
it's just unfortunate because you're just never gonna feel that satisfaction in what it takes when you do overcome a hard challenge. It's just, you know what I mean? It's for me. I just like. I feel bad for you.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's kind of like you see a lot of these people that put themselves online gaming or whatever, or like, even let's take it, like, I mean, it's kind of extreme a little bit, I guess, but like uh people that hurt other people. These kids that go to school, and I mean, there's all kinds of reasons, but like, they become a bully or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Um those feelings of failing or whatever, when you become used to that feeling and you learn how to overcome them, you can kind of tell when somebody has never felt that in their life, just kind of the way they respond that first time they fail. So like I said, those kids, they film themselves video gaming and they smash their keyboard, or older kids you'd think wouldn't react the way they do, or young adults or adults in general, right, wouldn't react the way they do if they'd experienced that before. It's just kind of one of those things where failure is something you have to get used to, but when you don't get used to it, it's almost kind of dangerous, your response to that, when it hits you the first time.
Yeah, it's just like that old saying. I think it's like the worst thing that ever happened to you is the worst thing that's ever happened to you, right? It's
Yeah.
everything's about. That's why it's like a baby. If you take away his toy, he's gonna have a temper tantrum and he's gonna scream and cry and act like it's just like
Mm-hmm.
the end of it, because that's the worst thing that's ever happened to him. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? It's like that's why it's so important for people to every single day is challenge themselves in some sort of way. If that's in a life goal, a daily goal, it's just really seeking out challenges. Like one of the things I do um, is just ice baths and stuff. And I think during my fight camps, I'm very strict on it. I go like I'm going to sit in this ice bath for 5 minutes. I do 5 minutes because at 5 minutes and those things suck. But I know if I
Mm-hmm.
can just stay calm and relaxed and in the zone, like I'm talking about, like during those
It's a lot of
for 5 minutes in
self-discipline.
that thing. Exactly that. If you get that, and it's just the self discipline too. Like if you do that thing in the morning, like how sad it sucks to wake up first thing in the morning and you're like, oh, you know what I mean? Then you're just jumping in a freaking ice bath. It's the sucks.
Mm-hmm.
It's the worst. It never gets easy. You always have to
Yeah.
have that mental fight with yourself. But you win that mental battle. You get in there. You know what I mean? And then when you get out, it's just like nothing in the rest of the day is going to be as hard as that fucking ice bath. You know what I mean? Is
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
win that little battle and you feel great. And I don't even know if it's a physical. I don't even know like the science behind the physical things. For me, it's like the freaking mental part of it. It's just like I'm going to get in there, I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to battle, and now I'm going to win every. And I do think there's some great physical aspects to it, but like I'm a big believer in that, man. Just keep it, and I feel like it's literally it makes you tougher. It's like I literally think it makes you tougher. Like when you go in there, you deal with that. Like I think physical punches. I feel like punches and stuff don't hurt as bad as sitting in an ice bath for 5 minutes in a real cool ice bath.
Damn. So having not gotten up in the middle of, in the morning and gotten in an ice bath, that shit looks like it sucks, man. Like I know there's all these like science behind it. It's like, oh, these cold shock proteins, they're great for your heart and they're great for like, releasing dopamine in your brain and, all this other shit. It's like, that's cool. And for you, right? Like you're doing it to like get in that mind space where you can train yourself to withstand the toughness of that cold water. But like, shit, man, I've thought to myself before. I've even like gone online, like shot for some of those like portable ice baths you can stick outside, and I just never. I'm admit it right now. I'm not talked myself into it enough. I'm like, I should do it.
I think you should do it. Do it.
You think I should do it?
Yeah, 100% do it. Do 3 minutes. Get in there and keep your hands. Get up onto your neck, hands underneath there, and just suffer. And just suffer for 3 minutes. It's gonna, especially your first one. I tell you what, which ones is gonna hurt the worst. It's the first time. The first one's always your body. What the fuck is this? I want to fight. I want to get out of this. I want to get out. But then you just fight through that. You get out. You're not gonna die. You won't die. And then you know what I mean. And then like you will feel the benefits. I promise you, dude. It's. I've been doing that for probably a year, 2 years now, and I feel like it's been like the biggest thing that's helped me. Recover wise, mentality wise, it gets me like in the zone when I'm getting to fight week. It's just like it's definitely good for you.
Is that just like reducing your recovery time? Do you feel like?
What'd you say? Sorry.
No, it's cool. I was saying, do you feel like it's like reducing your recovery time, like inflammation
100%.
and stuff like that? Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely.
Maybe I should do it.
Inflammation is the number one thing. I think we all are like extreme amounts of inflammation, and I think that that's the number one thing it does. And then, I mean, I can train. Like, I heard that like you don't want to do it after you lift or something. I heard some science behind that because it might reduce muscle growth or something like that. But
I think I saw that too.
Yeah, but other than that, I mean, I'm training. I want to like reset my nervous system. You know what I mean? Right. I feel like it really does that. So especially that's one of the reasons I love going to the PIs because they have like the best ice bath there and sauna and hot tub and all those things that, when I want to like recover and get myself better, there's nothing better than it.
Right. Maybe I have to do it. If I do it, I'll put it on the podcast page and I'll tag you in it.
Like, that's what I was just going to say, Brandon.
I fought my inner bitch.
Actually,
I fought my inner bitch. Go ahead, Connor.
I partnered with this company called, I don't know if it's the hat around here, called Non-Standard. The guy's he's a Green Beret, Special Forces guy from New Hampshire, and he does a thing of where he gets veterans. He sends them ice baths. He has a deal where he hooks them up and he sends a whole bunch of veterans ice baths. Any guys who are struggling with anything, because that's how much I believe in. I think it's going to help with PTSD. I think it's going to help with guys who get injured. I really believe this a lot. I think the fucking VA, if they instead of subscribing people or giving people prescriptions for pills and all this stuff, I think if they gave them ice baths and you coach them on using that instead, I think we'd see better outcomes. And, from like what an ice bath that's like $700 or something like that. I mean, that'd be cool if we get nice ones, like $1,000 ones. But like, I generally really think that you can help people out a lot with these.
Modern medicine doesn't treat the issue; it only treats the symptoms.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So that's why he's big on that. So he starts his companies. If you go look him up, Non-Standard. That's his thing. He's going out there just trying to help out guys, and his name's Adam. Guy's awesome. So yeah,
that's cool.
Check him out.
No, if I do it, fight my inner bitch and win and order one and go outside and do that, I'll put it up there and I'll tag you.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. I think now I'm gonna have to do it now that I've said this shit.
Well, I was gonna say, Brandon, when I get out to California, I'll do it with you.
There you
that's
go.
True. Yeah. Oh yeah. No, that's true.
Where are you out in California?
So I am stationed near Travis, or I'm at Travis, but I live near Sacramento.
Okay, awesome, nice.
Yeah. Zach just got orders out here to Beale, so he'll be here in a couple months. And Beale and Travis are like super close together. They're like 30 minutes away. So
So Travis is like near San Francisco, correct? Pretty close.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, so we landed there one time. I'll tell you a little story. So we're doing some training down in what's the name of that town in California? It's near San Luis. It's near San Luis Obispo. There's like a little training site out there. We were doing whatever. We were doing like a full mission profile. And we flew down there with the C-130 crew. And then on the way back, we were flying back. So this pilot was like, "Hey, we're gonna fly low over the Golden Gate Bridge, so you guys can take pictures and stuff. Where they open up the ramp, you guys take pictures, whatever." We're like, "All right,
that's
cool."
dope.
So they gave out bailout rigs. You know what I mean? Just to put them on, so just in case for whatever. So we put them on. We walked to like the ramp, right before the ramp, not on the ramp, but like right before the ramp. And then like they're lowering down the ramp, and then all of a sudden like the ramp stopped. They couldn't get it, and the plane fucking went like straight down and then right back up. And then everybody in the back of the plane flew up to the top of the plane, and like including me. I literally like grabbed the cargo net on the side, like I could see down literally to the earth, to the ocean, and I grabbed the cargo net. So I guess what happened was the plane did a thing called a porpoise, and there was a miscommunication between the load master and the whatever and us, where when the ramp got caught. So they did the porpoise. They thought we were all still sitting down. We weren't, whatever, and to unlock the ramp. And that almost happened. It was a bad miscommunication. So literally people cut their head. People cut their head on the ceiling, on C-130s, all the pipes and everything hanging out.
Yeah.
People cut their head, get all messed up. We had an emergency land at Travis Air Force Base, and then she got grounded, and we had to fly back commercial from there back to JBLM.
Oh man, bet that pilot got his or her ass chewed too, man.
Yeah,
it's like they take that shit super seriously.
Yeah, that was not good. I feel bad. She was actually really cool because I worked with her. Oh, I shouldn't say that. But I worked with this individual. I don't know her, he could have been anybody. While I was deployed, and awesome pilot. She was really good in the like missions and stuff like that. So I was like, I feel bad. You know what I mean? She was just trying to help me up. So, but yeah,
right. Some stupid mistake.
Yeah, stupid mistake. It is what it is. Shit happens.
Yeah. Is there anybody in the UFC that you're looking forward to fighting or looking to square up against?
No, not really. I don't really care. I feel like I'm too young in the game. I don't have any like personal like. I don't know anybody. You know what I mean? I don't have personal. I just I'm too. I want to prove myself first and then call out people. You know what I mean? I want that belt, so it's just like we're working our way up, and then just like I don't want to be like the young guy. Just get on there and start calling people out, and then just what I mean. Right. I feel like that's silly. I still got I have a lot to prove at this point.
Got you. I saw the other day on Instagram you put a post up of yourself at like a food truck, and the caption you wrote, it said, "Your body is not a temple; it's an amusement park. Enjoy the ride." So when I saw that, I was like, I don't know. I felt like I saw a totally other side of you, because like typically what you post is obviously it's all fight stuff or like training or whatever. And so I was curious, like, what did you mean by that, and like what does that comment mean to you on the inside?
Like exactly what it says. Like I'm not a monk. I'm not I'm like, first of all, fighting. If I really cared about my body, I wouldn't be fighting.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I'm giving myself CTE. I'm giving myself, injuries. I'm aware of what, the injuries, but I just love I just love fighting. You know what I mean? I do care about longevity and I do these things that I gotta take my vitamins. I just want to optimize myself as much as possible, but at the same time, I'm gonna have a good time in life. You know what I mean? Like I'm gonna go enjoy things and try to live life to the maximum ability. If that's going to eat bad food, I love eating bad food. I love eating good food. You know what I mean? I'm just basically like anything and nothing in moderation. You know what I mean? I just gotta
everything
go
all at once.
Every direction. So
right.
That's what I mean by it, though. You know what I mean? I like. Yes, I am like a healthy person overall, I would say, for fighting and stuff, but like at the same time, I'm gonna like, but fighting overall is not the best thing for me, and I know that. So it's like, I just try to enjoy my life to maximum ability all the time.
Mm-hmm. I saw you had the Snake Farm board behind you.
Yes.
Do you still skate? I know it's like it's a CCT project, isn't it? The Snake Farm thing, or is it special?
Snake Farm is it's a company ran by like I think like 2 combat controllers. and one other guy. Then JT, you know JT, he's a TAC P. He owns Black
Mm-hmm.
Rifle Coffee. Jared Taylor, he's
Mm-hmm.
also in on it, and they it's a legit. So it's a guy that board on. I don't have the chart available, but all right, so there's Sean Rovell and my buddy Kevin. They were in
Mm-hmm.
Afghanistan together, and Sean Rovell was a combat controller. He's the one that was like on the post. He was like the poster boy for combat control. And
Okay.
when they were deployed, they would just skate all the time. You know what I mean? To kill time. When they'd find like a little piece of concrete, and that's what
Mm-hmm.
they did to kill time. And the Verd Snake Farm came from. He's telling me the story. I was asking where it came from. He's just like, "Oh, there's all these guys. All we have is guys around here. It's a fucking snake farm." You know what I mean? So that's
Oh,
where they
dude.
came up with the name, like dudes, snakes. And then
Uh-huh.
so Sean passed away, and I
Mm-hmm.
think and this guy Chad and Kevin. I think one other guy. They started the combat. They started the Snake Farm. It's like a skateboard company attributed to him, and it's really
Mm-hmm.
grown. And now they have like legit professional skateboarders
Yeah.
on the team now. The company's growing. They're actually going to be selling it in Zoomies. So
Oh,
I
wow.
think that's happening this year. So yeah,
That's
man, I think it's
badass.
really cool. And I grew up skateboarding as well. When I was a young
Mm-hmm.
kid,
Same.
my parents used to drop me off at the skate park every day, and
Mm-hmm.
it was like that's what I did. And so everything
Same.
skating, surfing, snowboarding, like I was on a
Mm-hmm.
board my whole time, like when I was a kid. So yeah, I still skate. I'll mess around. I can kick flip still. You know what I mean? I'll
Hell
pop
yeah.
out, hit a kick flip, but I don't skate like I used to, obviously, because I don't need to fall down and break my arm and
Right.
my
Wouldn't be good for your fighting career. Dude,
exactly.
I've always had an easier time heel flipping than kick flipping. It's always
Yeah,
just been, I don't
it's
know,
one
it
of
felt
those
more
things,
natural to
right?
me. Mm-hmm.
And I'm the opposite. I can't heel flip for nothing. So it's
Right.
funny. Like some people
It
are
is
one way
funny.
or another. Right? Are you goofy or regular?
I was just about to ask you the same question. So I'm goofy, I push Mongo.
Oh, weirdo, Longo
I know.
flipper.
Yeah,
I
totally
agree.
weirdo. Zach's
Yeah,
like, I don't know what this
Yeah, you
is.
guys are speaking
yeah.
alien to me. I tried skateboarding once, I couldn't figure it out, and I stuck with the
Mhm.
scooter.
Yeah.
I need
Dude, I
hands on.
fucking right. I got so lucky because I grew up as a military brat, and we lived on a really, really small little base in Germany when I was in high school called Simbach. You may have heard of it. I know they do some training out there. But they built a skate park. They built it right over the top of a tennis court. And so, dude, I just like you said, man, I was out there every freaking day during the summer, right next to my house, like all the stairwell housings they have overseas. There's staircases all over the place, just busting my ass, you winding up in
Yeah,
the street, getting yelled at by the cops and all kinds of stuff. So
yeah.
yeah, great
It's
way to
funny.
grow up. I love skateboarding.
I just had a shirt that the Snake Farm was a shirt says "Make skateboarding illegal again." It's like in a black shirt. So it's funny to
That's
say that.
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that was me too. When I was growing up, I either get dropped off at the skate park or I grew up in my grandparents' house in Rhode Island. So I spent a lot of time when my parents were like working jobs. My dad was going to college and stuff. So I used to go stay at my
Yeah.
grandparents' house. And they had a big skateboard culture in the city that they
Mm.
have Newport, Rhode Island. There's like skate rinks. So I kind of like at a young age really got involved in that
Mm-hmm.
feral childhood where you just kind of go to the skate
Yeah.
park and just like
That was me.
yeah, so it's kind of cool though. I mean, you drive by skate parks nowadays and they're just empty. So,
I
you know
know.
what I mean? It's like I think
Yeah.
that was cool. It's just like you learn how to be your own person. As a
Mm-hmm.
lot of skateboard kids, it's a different kind of. I think a lot of days, like we talked about, kids are very sheltered. They're in the room and they're, you know what I mean. I
Mm-hmm.
think it's like going out, you're getting fist fights over like cameras, bags, and stupid shit
Whatever.
you do at the skate park. You know what I mean? Like I remember
Mm-hmm.
those days, and you know what I mean. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Now Travis has a skate park. It's always empty as well. But that was
yeah,
me, man. I grew up on base, and so my parents were always just super comfortable with me running all over the place. Even when we lived in Japan, I could take the train into like downtown Tokyo, and my parents were totally cool with it. And I was like 14 years old, and it 100% teaches you how to become your own person because it's a level of self-reliance that you're not going to get unless you're just in it doing it. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
yeah, but anyway, man.
Totally agree.
Yeah, I really appreciate you coming on and talking to us, dude. I'll be absolutely rooting for you. I would love to. I'm gonna pay attention, find out when your fights are, and do you have any idea if like any of them be out here in California? Because I would absolutely travel to go see you, or even
Yeah,
like
no,
Vegas. Like that's close. Like.
Probably Vegas is probably likely. You know what I mean? They have the Apex there in Vegas, so they run fights there. Quite a
Mm-hmm.
bit, and there's always fights in Vegas. So that's probably I'm most likely to be fighting there within the next 3 years. But nothing really specific. I mean, like I said, I'm new to the UFC. It's just I'll fight anywhere and any time. So
Mm-hmm.
when they call me, I got to be ready. That's all I got. That's my job. So I'll let you know though. I'll be posting it. I'm sure it'll be all over the place.
Definitely repost as well. Sick, man. Well, I really, really appreciate you coming on, like I said, and looking forward to talking to you after you start this adventure and get some of those fights under your belt and hearing what that's like. So, best of luck to you, man. I know you're gonna kick some fucking ass, and I hope everything works out the way that you want it to, man.
Thank you very much, man. I really appreciate it. Thank you guys for having me on. So yeah, but I'll keep in touch and get out there and represent the Air Force. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. All right.
What's going on, Fire fans? I Came with Fire podcast is sponsored by Red Clover Coffee and Sheep's Clothing LLC. Red Clover Coffee is a veteran-owned company with small batch roasted coffees, and they just happen to donate to some pretty awesome charities. Whether you're into specialty flavored coffees, single source coffees, or having a really cool coffee mug and some badass slaps, Red Clover has you covered. You can order ground, whole bean, or even coffee pods and get it all at 10% off your entire purchase using coupon code CAMEWITHFIRE. Again, that's 10% off your entire purchase using our coupon code CAMEWITHFIRE. I personally love their Blueberry Invasion and African Roast. That Blueberry Invasion hits the spot. Head over and get yourself some awesome coffee and support us by supporting our sponsor. I Came with Fire podcast is also sponsored by Sheep's Clothing LLC. Sheep's Clothing LLC is a unifying banner for all violent arts, disciplines, professions, and survivors of violent circumstances. Redefine violence. Both Zach and I being survivors of violent circumstances and LEOs in the military, we are especially excited to be able to offer you 10% off your entire purchase with coupon code FIRE10 at checkout. Whether you're looking for an awesome t-shirt, hats, slaps, flags, or MMA gear, they've got you covered. Me personally, I love my snapback with the leather patch surrounded by God's flannel. If you know, you know. That's coupon code FIRE10, FIRE10 at checkout for 10% off your entire purchase. Thank you all so much for supporting this podcast, and if you should feel compelled, treat yourself by supporting our sponsors as well. They truly make a difference for us. Now let's make a difference for them. See you on the next show.